My name is Ashley, and at almost 21, life felt like a pressure cooker. Right now, I'm smack dab in the middle of finals week at college where I'm wrestling with finance. It's a beast of a subject, yet numbers have always danced to my tune. As I sat hunched in my cramped dorm room, a chaotic landscape of textbooks and a graveyard of empty coffee cups, my upcoming birthday flickered in my mind. My family, bless their hearts, were planning a celebration for when these torturous exams finally ended, however. A knot of unease always tightened in my stomach at the thought of family gatherings growing up. I'd always felt like the odd one out, a stark contrast to my golden child of a sister Tiffany, now 26. She effortlessly soaked up my parents' attention like a sponge, leaving me perpetually in her shadow. I vividly remember her 14th birthday bash, a colossal affair complete with a bouncy castle, a cheesy magician, and a cake that could have fed a small army. Naively, I'd envisioned my own turning 14 would be just as magical. But when my day rolled around a few months later, all I unwrapped was a pathetic little grocery store cake and a soul-crushing pair of socks. The injustice stung so sharply I could taste it. Tears welled, but I fought them back only for my mom to pat my head dismissively. "Don't be such a drama, Queen Ashley. It's just a birthday." In that moment, a cold, hard truth settled within me. I simply didn't matter as much. As the years crawled by, this bitter realization only deepened. Tiffany flaunted a new smartphone every year while I inherited her cast-offs. Designer clothes draped her frame while I shuffled in her hand-me-downs. When she triumphantly graduated high school, a shiny new car materialized in the driveway. My own graduation gift, a measly bookstore gift card. But then there was Grandma Eleanor, a beacon in the fog. She had always made me feel seen, truly special. When I excitedly told her about my finance major, her face lit up. "You've got a sharp mind on those shoulders, Ashley," she declared, her eyes twinkling. "You'll go far, mark my words." Now, bless her generous soul, she was orchestrating my birthday celebration. I was utterly floored when I found out she'd even slipped my parents a few $1,000s to make it happen. My parents, who usually treated my birthdays with casual indifference, hadn't even blinked at Grandma's offer. They simply pocketed the cash and told me to focus on acing my exams. Of course, drama followed. I distinctly overheard Tiffany throwing a monumental hissy fit. "Why does she get a big party?" she whined, her voice dripping with jealousy. "I could really use that money for the trip I've been dying to take." Grandma, however, wasn't having any of it. "Hush now, Tiffany," she'd retorted, her voice sharp. "You're spoiled enough as it is. Didn't I just give you 10 grand for rent, and yet you're still leeching off your parents?" That shut Tiffany up faster than a slammed door. A tiny spark of satisfaction flickered within me. For once, the spotlight felt like it was finally on me. But first I had to conquer that last looming exam. So there I was, fueled by lukewarm coffee and sheer desperation, cramming like my life depended on it. The moment that final bell rang, I would finally be free. Free to celebrate, free to feel for once, like I truly mattered. The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Finally, as I walked out of the exam hall, it felt like a colossal weight had been lifted from my weary shoulders. My classmates were already buzzing with the electric anticipation of summer. Internships, exotic vacations, cross-country road trips. But my mind was laser-focused on one thing and one thing only. My birthday. As I trudged back to my dorm, my phone vibrated incessantly with a flurry of messages. My college friends, knowing I'd be heading home soon, were sending early birthday wishes. It felt nice to be remembered even by people I'd only known for a couple of years. "Happy almost birthday, Ashley," my roommate Haley called out as I stepped into our shared cluttered space. "Ready for the big family shindig?" I plastered on a forced smile. "Yeah, should be. Interesting." Haley raised a skeptical eyebrow. "You don't sound too thrilled." "Everything okay?" I sighed, the weight of years of disappointment settling heavily on my chest as I flopped onto my bed. "It's just my family. They're not exactly the warm and fuzzy type, especially not towards me." "But your grandma organized everything right," Haley countered, trying to inject a note of optimism. "That's gotta count for something." I nodded slowly. "Yeah. Grandma's always been different. She actually seems to like me." As I packed my worn duffel bag for the trip home, A bewildering cocktail of emotions churned in my stomach, fragile hope battling against the familiar gnawing dread. Hope that for once my birthday would feel genuinely special. Dread that somehow, inevitably, it would all go wrong. The bus ride home stretched out like an eternity. My mind a frantic racetrack of anxieties. Would the house be festively decorated? Would there be a real cake, not some sad store-bought imitation? Would my parents actually manage to look happy to see me? I stared out the window, the mundane scenery blurring into an indistinguishable mess, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. No matter how much I tried to mentally prepare myself, a stark certainty settled within me. This birthday would be different. Whether that difference would be a welcome surprise or yet another crushing disappointment, I was about to find out. I trudged up the familiar driveway, the worn concrete cracking under my sneakers. Taking a deep, steadying breath, I surveyed the house. It looked the same. No vibrant balloons bobbed in the breeze. No cheerful banners proclaimed a celebration. Nothing hinted at the impending party. But perhaps I reasoned with a desperate surge of optimism. They had transformed the inside into a festive wonderland. I fumbled with the front door key, the metal cold against my trembling fingers. "Mom, Dad, I'm home," I called out, my voice echoing in the unnerving silence. It was far too quiet for a house supposedly buzzing with party preparations. My heart sank a little, a cold premonition settling in my gut. But I stubbornly pushed the negative thoughts away. Maybe they were just waiting to ambush me with a surprise. I dropped my backpack with a dull thud by the door and walked into the living room. My parents sat on the worn floral couch, their posture stiff, their expressions radiating an unsettling discomfort. The room was starkly bare. No decorations, no telltale signs of a party. At all. Hi, I stammered, a knot of confusion tightening in my chest. "Where's all the birthday stuff?" My parents exchanged a loaded glance, a silent communication that sent a shiver of dread down my spine. My dad cleared his throat, the sound unnaturally loud in the oppressive silence. "About that, Ashley." His voice sounded distant, almost too cold. "We decided not to have the party." I blinked, sure I must have misheard him. "What?" "But Grandma gave you money for it." My mom finally spoke. Her tone clipped dismissive. "We gave the money to Tiffany for her trip." For a split second the words didn't register, then the brutal reality crashed down on me. "You... what?" My voice trembled, barely a whisper. "Tiffany and her boyfriend flew to Boston a couple of days ago," my mom added casually, as if she were discussing the weather. Like it was no big deal. The air seemed to vanish from my lungs, leaving me gasping for breath. My eyes burned with unshed tears. But that money was for my birthday." "Grandma gave it to you. For me." My dad shrugged, still refusing to meet my gaze. "Tiffany needed a vacation. You understand, don't you?" My hands clenched into tight fists, the nails digging into my palms. "Understand? Oh, I understand perfectly. It was supposed to be my birthday party. I invited people. What am I supposed to tell them?" My mom waved a dismissive hand, as if swatting away a bothersome fly. "We already handled it. We called everyone and told them you were struggling with college, so the party was canceled." I stared at her, the initial shock morphing into a white-hot surge of pure, unadulterated anger. "You lied. You made me look pathetic instead of just telling the truth." My dad's expression hardened, his eyes finally locking onto mine, with a flash of irritation. "That's enough, Ashley. You need to stop being so selfish." A bitter, humorless laugh escaped my lips. "Selfish? How am I selfish? It was my birthday. My party." Just then the front door swung open. My heart leaped with a desperate, foolish hope. Was Tiffany back suddenly contrite? But no, it was Grandma, Eleanor. She stepped inside, her sharp, intelligent eyes instantly scanning the tense tableau in the living room. Something in her unwavering gaze made my parents freeze like deer caught in headlights. "What in God's name is going on here?" she demanded, her voice firm, brooking no argument. "Where's the party?" I looked at my parents, a silent plea in my eyes, waiting for them to offer some pathetic excuse. They hesitated, their eyes darting nervously, fumbling for words that wouldn't come. And that's when something inside me finally snapped. I turned to Grandma, my voice shaking with a raw, untamed anger I didn't know I possessed. "There is no party," I choked out the words, thick with bitterness. "They gave the money to Tiffany for a trip to Boston instead." I watched a strange sense of detachment washing over me as my grandmother's face transformed. Usual warmth and humor vanished, replaced by a chilling mask of fury and profound disappointment, both directed squarely at my utterly spineless parents. "Is this true?" she demanded, her voice dangerously low. My parents wouldn't even look at her. Their shamefaced silence spoke volumes. Grandma turned back to me, her expression softening, a wave of fierce protectiveness washing over her features. "Ashley, dear," she said gently but firmly, "go pack your things. You're coming with me." I didn't need to be told twice. I practically flew up the stairs, yanking open drawers and throwing clothes haphazardly into my backpack, fueled by a potent mix of fury and relief. As I packed, I could hear Grandma's voice downstairs, a low rumbling thunder of righteous anger as she finally unleashed her fury on my utterly deserving parents. I couldn't make out the exact words, but the unwavering tone conveyed everything. When I finally lugged my overflowing backpack back downstairs, Grandma was waiting by the door, her purse clutched in her hand, her face set in a grim line. She didn't utter another word to my parents. Neither did I. We simply walked out and got into her gleaming Cadillac. As we drove away, the carefully constructed dam of my emotions finally broke. Tears streamed down my face, a torrent of years of suppressed hurt and resentment. It wasn't just about the dam party. It was about 21 years of feeling unloved, unwanted, and utterly invisible. Grandma reached over and squeezed my hand, her touch a comforting anchor in the swirling storm of my emotions. Her voice, though gentle, held an unshakable strength. "Don't you worry, dear. We'll sort this out. You deserve so much better than this. And it's high time someone showed you that." "A real celebration," she declared with a newfound spark in her eyes as she steered us towards her magnificent two-story home nestled on the tranquil edge of town. As we pulled into the impeccably manicured driveway, she turned to me, a determined glint in her gaze. "This might not be the party you were expecting, Ashley, but we are going to celebrate your birthday the right way." Once inside, Grandma Eleanor wasted no time. She grabbed her phone and, to my utter astonishment, began ordering what sounded like enough gourmet food to feed a small army. "Rush delivery," she added with a decisive click before hanging up. Turning to me with a mischievous wink, she said, "Hope you're hungry, sweetheart. We've got a feast coming our way." As we waited, Grandma bustled around her spacious, sun-drenched kitchen, pulling out her finest china and gleaming silverware. I offered to help, but she waved me away with a dismissive flick of her wrist. "It's your birthday, my dear. You just relax." So I sat at her polished kitchen table, watching her move with an energetic grace that belied her age. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt genuinely cared for. Yet despite the warmth of her presence, a heavy question lingered in my chest. A persistent ache I could no longer ignore. "Grandma," I asked quietly, my voice barely above a whisper, Why don't they love me?" She froze mid-reach for a crystal goblet, then slowly turned to face me, a profound sadness clouding her usually bright eyes. It was as if she were wrestling with a long-buried secret. After a long, pregnant pause, she sighed, the sound heavy with unspoken history, and sat down across from me, reaching for my trembling hand. "Oh, Ashley," she said softly, her thumb gently stroking my knuckles. "I suppose it's time you knew the truth." My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat of apprehension. The truth about what Grandma Eleanor took a deep, fortifying breath as if preparing herself for a difficult confession. Then she looked me straight in the eye, her gaze unwavering, and uttered the words that shattered the fragile foundation of my understanding of my own life. "Your parents, they didn't want you to be born." And it felt like a physical blow, as if someone had landed a solid punch to my gut. "What?" I whispered, the single word, laced with disbelief and pain. "They thought Tiffany was enough." Grandma nodded, her voice gentle yet firm. "Yes, but I convinced them to have you." Your mother had a very difficult pregnancy, and your birth was complicated. She almost didn't make it. Tears welled in my eyes, blurring my vision. So it's my fault? No. Grandma said sharply, her grip on my hand tightening. Absolutely not, Ashley. These things happen sometimes. It was never ever your fault, but my daughter, your mother, she avoided you ever since, and your father and Tiffany, they simply followed her lead. I sat there stunned, the pieces of a lifelong puzzle finally clicking into place, forming a devastatingly clear picture. I had always sensed something was terribly wrong, but I had never in my wildest nightmares imagined this level of cold, calculated rejection. Before I could fully process this earth-shattering revelation, the doorbell rang its cheerful chime, a jarring intrusion into the heavy silence. Our food had arrived. Grandma Eleanor went to retrieve it, leaving me alone at the table, the weight of her words pressing down on me, a suffocating burden of unwantedness. This birthday, I realized with a chilling certainty, was destined to be one I would never, ever forget. The next few hours passed in a surreal blur. Grandma and I devoured an absurd amount of delectable food, her animated stories from her youth punctuated by my own watery laughter. Even as my heart ached with the newfound knowledge of my parents' cruel indifference, I found myself relaxing, truly enjoying my birthday for the first time in years. By the time we polished off the last decadent slice of cake, Grandma's phone trilled. She glanced at the screen, a mischievous glint suddenly appearing in her eyes, then back at me. "It's your sister," she announced with a wry smile. "Shall we see what she has to say?" Curiosity, that ever-present human flaw, got the better of me. I nodded. Grandma tapped the speakerphone button. "Hello." Tiffany's voice, laced with panic, filled the cozy kitchen. "Grandma, why is my card blocked? What's going on?" Grandma Eleanor's voice was calm, almost amused. "Hello, Tiffany. I see you've discovered that actions have consequences." What actions? What are you talking about?" Tiffany's voice rose in pitch, teetering on the edge of hysteria. "Your behavior and that of your parents has been absolutely shameful," Grandma said firmly, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Taking money meant for your sister's birthday and using it for yourself. That was selfish and cruel. I'm deeply disappointed in you." A stunned silence hung in the air, thick with unspoken recriminations. Then Tiffany's voice returned, now sharp with indignant anger. "Oh, come on, Grandma. Mom and Dad did the right thing giving me that money. Ashley doesn't need some big party. You're just a crazy old woman, and that's quite enough." Grandma Eleanor's voice cut through Tiffany's tirade like a steel blade. "I've heard all I need to hear." And with a decisive click, she hung up. I stared at her, my mouth agape. "Grandma, did you really block her card?" She nodded, a small, satisfied smile gracing her lips. "I did, and your parents' accounts too. It's high time they learned to stand on their own 2 feet. As if on cue, the phone started ringing again. This time it was my parents. Grandma Eleanor completely ignored it, turning back to me utterly unfazed. "Now then, she said cheerfully, as if we hadn't just turned my family's world upside down. "And how about we plan the rest of your birthday week?" The time I spent with Grandma felt like a dream, a stark and welcome contrast to the living nightmare my birthday had initially threatened to become. For once, I felt truly loved and appreciated. We went on a whirlwind shopping spree, explored fascinating museums, and simply basked in each other's company. It was the happiest I had felt in a long, long time. But as the saying goes, all good things must eventually come to an end. Before I knew it, it was time to return to my quiet dorm room and the looming pressure of summer classes. As I unpacked in my small familiar space, my phone buzzed insistently. I glanced at the screen and saw a relentless barrage of missed calls and increasingly frantic messages from my parents and Tiffany. With a weary sigh, I sank onto my bed and began scrolling through the digital onslaught. The first message from my mom read, "Ashley, you need to talk to your grandmother right now. This is unacceptable." Then came my dad's equally self-righteous demand. "We are your parents. You owe us your loyalty. Make her unblock our accounts." Tiffany's messages were even more venomous. "You backstabbing little brat. Is this what you wanted? To ruin everything for us? We're stuck in Boston because of you. Fix this now." My hands trembled as I read their entitled words, the sheer audacity of them demanding my help after their callous cruelty was staggering. Taking a deep, calming breath, I typed a simple, resolute response. This is between you and Grandma. I won't get involved. Please don't contact me about this again. I hit send, a small sense of defiance blooming in my chest. And then without a moment's hesitation, I blocked all their numbers. A line had been crossed. A point of no return reached. But the hard-won peace didn't last long. They resorted to calling from different unknown numbers, leaving a string of increasingly desperate voicemails filled with manipulative guilt trips, angry demands, and outright insults. One particularly vulnerable day, I accidentally answered a call. The instant I heard my mother's icy voice, a wave of regret washed over me. "You ungrateful little trash," she spat, her voice dripping with venom. "I should have never given birth to you. I should have had an abortion instead." Her words struck me like a physical blow, a cruel and calculated assault on my very being. That was the final straw. I ended the call with trembling fingers and blocked every single number they attempted to reach me from. Then I curled up on my bed, the dam of my composure finally breaking, tears streaming down my face as my mother's hateful words echoed in the suffocating silence of my dorm room. Over the next few weeks, I buried myself in my studies, desperately trying to drown out the pain and the lingering echo of my mother's cruelty. With the demanding weight of textbooks and assignments, I called Grandma Eleanor often. Her unwavering support was the only balm that could soothe the raw wounds of my heart. "How are you holding up, dear?" she would ask, her voice always warm and laced with genuine concern. I would force a small, shaky smile into the phone and reply, "I'm okay, Grandma, just focusing on my classes." "That's my girl," she would say, a note of pride evident in her voice. "Remember, you're stronger than you think. Don't let them get to you." Her words were like a soothing balm on my battered spirit. My parents and Tiffany had revealed their true ugly colors, but Grandma Eleanor had become my rock, my safe harbor in the turbulent storm of my life. It was a crisp autumn day, about 3 months after the disastrous birthday that had inadvertently become a catalyst for profound change. I was walking across the bustling campus, my mind preoccupied with the looming pressure of an upcoming finance exam, when suddenly I heard someone call my name, Ashley. I turned around, a flicker of annoyance at the interruption quickly turning to stunned disbelief. Jogging towards me with a practiced $1,000,000 smile was Ethan, Tiffany's boyfriend, the same Ethan who had conveniently accompanied her on that ill-gotten trip to Boston. He was as conventionally handsome as ever, and I couldn't help but notice the casual glances he drew from other girls as he approached. Before I could even formulate a coherent thought, he pulled me into a surprisingly warm hug. I stood there stiff and utterly bewildered until he finally released me, his grin still firmly in place. "Ethan." "What are you doing here?" I asked acutely, aware of the curious stares we were attracting. "I was hoping to run into you," he said smoothly, his eyes sparkling with an unsettling intensity. "Can we talk? There's a cafe just off campus." Every fiber of my being screamed, no, but a morbid curiosity, a desire to understand the bizarre turn my life had taken, won out. "Okay," I agreed hesitantly, "but I can't stay long." We found a quiet corner booth in the bustling cafe. Ethan leaned forward, his charming facade suddenly replaced by an unnerving seriousness. "Ashley," he began, his voice low and earnest, "I need to tell you something important." I braced myself, half expecting some convoluted message from my estranged family. But what he said next left me utterly and completely stunned. "I want to be with you," he blurted out, reaching across the small table to take my hand. "I'm going to leave Tiffany for you." I stared at him, my mouth hanging open in disbelief. "Ethan, what are you even talking about? You're with my sister." He shook his head vehemently, his gaze locked onto mine with an unsettling intensity. "I've been in love with you for a long time, Ashley. I only dated Tiffany to be close to you." I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. My mind reeled desperately, trying to make sense of his utterly bizarre confession. Ethan had never shown the slightest interest in me before. In fact, he had barely acknowledged my existence when he was with Tiffany. Something felt profoundly disturbingly off. I decided to play along to see just how deep this rabbit hole went. Forcing a hesitant, shy smile, I said, "Wow, Ethan, that's really sweet. I had no idea you felt that way." His face lit up clearly, encouraged by my carefully crafted response. "Really? So, what do you think? Would you give us a chance?" I pretended to consider his audacious proposition, then nodded slowly. "This is a lot to take in. Can I have some time to think? Maybe we can meet again, in a week?" Ethan eagerly agreed, his eyes shining with what I suspected was opportunistic glee. "Of course, take all the time you need, Ashley. I'll wait for you." After he finally left, I remained in the cafe, slowly sipping my now cold coffee, replaying the surreal conversation in my mind. I couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that Ethan's sudden dramatic declaration of love was somehow inextricably linked to Grandma Eleanor's decisive financial actions against my family. But how? And what exactly was Ethan hoping to gain? Just as I stepped out of the cafe, my head still swimming with unanswered questions, my phone rang. Tiffany's name flashed angrily on the screen. With a deep, weary sigh, I answered. "You backstabbing little tramp!" Tiffany shrieked through the speaker, her voice a distorted weapon of pure rage. "How could you do this to me?" I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear, wincing at the sheer volume of her fury. "Tiffany, what the hell are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me, you home-wrecking." I'd had enough. My already frayed patience finally snapped. "Shut up right now and explain what's going on, or I'm hanging up." There was a stunned silence on the other end, the sudden cessation of her tirade almost more unsettling than the yelling itself. Then Tiffany's voice returned, trembling, with a potent cocktail of fury and wounded pride. "Ethan just dumped me. He said he's going to date you instead." How could you? I felt like I had been sucker punched. "What? Tiffany, I swear I had no idea." "Oh, don't act all innocent," she spat, her voice dripping with venomous disbelief. "I bet you're absolutely thrilled about this, aren't you? Well, guess what? He's only after you for Grandma's money." My head spun, the pieces of a disturbing puzzle starting to click into place. "Grandma's money? What are you talking about?" Tiffany let out a bitter, humorless laugh. "Oh, you don't know?" "Well, let me fill you in. Little sister Grandma is cutting Mom, Dad, and me out of her will. She's leaving everything to you." I leaned against a nearby brick wall, feeling suddenly dizzy and nauseous. "But why would she do that?" "Because she found out about Mom and Dad's little plan," Tiffany said, her voice thick with resentful fury. "They actually tried to have her declared mentally unfit so they could take control of her money, but the old bat caught wind of it somehow." A wave of nausea washed over me. "They what?" "You heard me, Ashley," Tiffany sneered. "And now we're all cut off. Except for you, of course. The perfect little princess." The pieces finally slammed together, forming a horrifyingly clear picture. So that's why Ethan suddenly wanted to be with me, because of Grandma Eleanor's inheritance. "Bingo," Tiffany said mockingly, her voice dripping with cruel satisfaction. "Give the girl a prize. God, that vile old woman, I hope she—" "Don't you dare finish that sentence, Tiffany." My voice was ice cold, a stark contrast to the turmoil raging within me. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles turned white. I don't know who's worse, Mom and Dad for trying to steal from Grandma, or Ethan for being a gold-digging snake. Tiffany gasped, her outrage momentarily eclipsing her anger. "How dare you? No, how dare you?" Shot back, and voice trembling with a potent mix of fury and heartbreak. "All of you, you're all despicable. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Don't ever call me again." I hung up the phone, my hand shaking violently, tears stinging my eyes. How could my own family be so cruel, so greedy, so utterly devoid of basic human decency? With trembling fingers, I dialed Grandma Eleanor's number. She answered right away, her voice a familiar beacon of warmth and calm in the storm of my emotions. "Ashley, dear, is everything all right?" I took a deep, shuddering breath. "Grandma, I just found out about everything, the inheritance. Mom and Dad trying to declare you incompetent. Is it true?" There was a brief pause on the other end. Then, to my surprise, Grandma chuckled softly. "Oh, my dear, I was wondering when you'd hear about all that drama." "Yes, it's true." She then proceeded to tell me the full, unbelievable story, her voice carrying a fascinating mix of disappointment and amusement. You should have seen their faces when the commission showed up at my door. I invited them in for tea, Grandma said with a dry chuckle, answered all their silly questions, and even did a few Sudoku puzzles to prove my mind was as sharp as ever. I couldn't help but smile, picturing the scene. So, what happened next? Grandma continued. Well, they left completely satisfied that I was perfectly fine. Your parents' ridiculous claim was of course rejected. After that, I had no choice but to protect my money, and you, from their insatiable greed. I left them the house but everything else. That's all going to you. My dear, I felt utterly overwhelmed, a wave of gratitude washing over me. Grandma, I don't know what to say. She simply patted my hand, her gaze filled with unwavering affection. You don't have to say anything, Ashley. Just promise me you'll use it wisely. One day I wanted to take over the company, build on what I've created. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I promise, Grandma, I won't let you down. After that pivotal conversation, I threw myself into my studies with a newfound determination, a fierce resolve to build a future independent of the toxic web of my family. My parents and Tiffany, if I could even bring myself to call them that anymore, became strangers to me. I maintained the block on their numbers, ignored their increasingly desperate and manipulative messages. I wanted nothing to do with them. They had shown their true ugly colors, and I refused to let them inflict any more pain. A week later, true to his opportunistic word, Ethan showed up again, lurking near my usual route to class. His confident, predatory smile faltered slightly when he saw the cold, unwavering look in my eyes. Ashley. He began reaching for my hand with a practiced charm that now only repulsed me. I pulled my hand away as if it had been burned. Save it, Ethan. I snapped, my voice sharp and unforgiving. I know all about your pathetic little plan. You and my sister deserve each other. You're both disgusting and greedy. His carefully constructed facade of charm crumbled instantly, revealing the ugly opportunist beneath. You're making a big mistake, he sneered, his eyes narrowing with undisguised anger. You're a fool to turn me down. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. A guy like you? You mean a gold digger with no morals? No thanks, I think I'll pass. His face twisted in a mask of pure rage, but he had nothing left to say. He stormed off, leaving me standing there, a profound sense of relief washing over me. I was finally free. Free from the lies, free from the manipulation, free from the constant soul-crushing feeling of being unwanted. Over the next few months, Grandma Eleanor took me under her wing, patiently and enthusiastically teaching me everything about running